Welcome back to the Running Wine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Cieslinski, aka the Running Wine Mom. Joining us today is Marion Welch, a seasoned cord blood educator with a remarkable journey in the field of stem cell preservation. Marion's passion for educating families and the invaluable benefits of cord blood banking stems from personal experience and a commitment to advancing medical innovation. With over 2 decades of experience and a pivotal role in the Cryo-Cell International, Marion is here to shed light on the significance of cord blood banking, the latest developments at Cryo-Cell, and the promising future of regenerative medicine. Without further ado, let's welcome Marion. Welcome, Marion.
Thank you. So happy to be here. This is great. Very excited.
And you're one of the wonderful women that I met at the Create Her event. So I was so excited to get connected to you and get this interview going on. But before we get into all the Cryo-Cell and cord blood education, we start each episode with our wine, and win of the week segment. This is where we share our favorite bottle of wine, vent about something that has been bothering us, and celebrate our recent victory. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. So what is your WINE of the week?
So I am a Sauvignon Blanc drinker, and I love Geysen and Kono, and that's all I drink as far as wine. I like light and crisp, and I drink it all year round. Nothing else. And they're affordable. They're great wines, and they're very refreshing.
I will have to try it. I don't think I've ever tried it, and I love a good Sauvignon Blanc, so I will add it to my list of. Yes, I love a good. Yes, my fun fact: my cousin, who we're from the East Coast, but he moved to New Zealand. I guess it's 11 years ago now, and he makes wine. And I got to go out there and visit him and help pick the grapes and all of that, which was really cool. And so, not only is New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc the best, but I, obviously am a little bit more attuned to it, having gone visit, which I thought was pretty cool.
Great wines.
What is your
from New Zealand?
So what is your WHINE of the week?
I think my wine of the week is just that, I think people are not communicating well about issues and education. And it's been a hard week to see what's going on, especially at the universities. And I think that touches everyone, no matter what their belief is. It's just been a very, very tough week. And I think it's really sad. And my wine of the week is we need more communication. We need a very strong voice, to unite people if we can do that. I mean, we've been through hard times before the 60s, the 70s. I mean, every decade has had issues and has had protests, but hopefully this one can, in some way, if we can find the right avenue of communication, we can make this a positive situation for both sides.
Yeah, it is. It's very hard to watch it, and it's just so heavy, so many people, and that is definitely a wine of the week. And hopefully for not too much longer, it won't be a wine, and we can figure out some sort of resolution to all of that, hopefully. So what is your win of the week?
I think my win of the week is working in my field in educating families about cord blood stem cells and working with a family that had multiple genetic red flags that came to me about saving the cord blood stem cells. There's a lot of education. I think I wouldn't call it a win. I would call it something very satisfactory for me. It gives me a lot of satisfaction in that the family understood the importance of saving those stem cells in regards to their family history and to their genetic history. And so that was great because education made a difference in this family's decision on saving their baby stem cells. And that would be a win, something for both the family and for the baby.
Yeah, that's definitely a win. It's so cool to see how much something so simple as saving your stem cells can help you for your whole entire life. So I'm definitely excited to learn more about that. I always like to ask my guests, what is one struggle that you have overcome leading to where you are now? And what is one thing you are most proud of in life?
I think the struggle that I had was always balancing bringing up my children, my family life, and taking care of my parents as they aged, and doing my advocacy, my journey with stem cell education. It was really, really tough at some points, especially because I was also helping out, taking care of elderly parents and young children. It's, and motherhood really, when you can have it all, but you have to have a very, very good support system. And that is something that I'm very proud of. And I had a great husband and my children too, who really helped me. But it was definitely something that needs to be really addressed and really needs support on.
Yeah, a support system. It makes such a big difference in just parenthood in general. We're very lucky to have both sets of parents close by helping us so we can continue with our careers and they can kind of fill in when my husband or I can't. And it's just such a big difference to have the support system, which is, great thing. I'm glad they have.
I've got to give a shout out to my sisters who helped me through my journey and really was very supportive and helped with family and to actually educate families as well that they came across on, the preservation of stem cells.
It's amazing that you have that. I love that. So the Running Wine Mom, we start off also with a little fitness. What is your favorite way to stay active?
I am a huge walker. I try to walk every single day. I try to do at least 12 to 15 miles a week. And I just love it.
Great.
I love it because it clears my mind. It's good for the body. It's low impact. Try to get my heart rate up. I also do a lot on the elliptical. I have elliptical in my home, but walking is my choice of exercise with some weights as well.
Yeah, that's great. And as I say, I feel like a lot of my guests love to walk and some come on like, oh, I just walk. Walking is one of the best things that you can do for your health and fitness. So that's great. So how do you stay motivated to maintain your own fitness routine?
I think about my health and I'm very health conscious. I really eat well. I have some, family history that I have to try to really be aware of, and, diet and exercise are very important to me to stay healthy and to function at my best. I think that without exercise, not only do you not get the physical energy, but you don't get the mental energy if you don't exercise. And I need that as well. And I find when I'm exercising, my mental acuity is better. My positivity is better. It's just all around. And that keeps me motivated because, I don't take a lot of medication. I don't drink very much alcohol anymore. I'm older now. Sad to say. And exercise is like water to me. It's really, really important. And that motivates me to stay healthy.
That's great. And so, so important. And the mental health part of it is such a great part of just exercising. And I definitely always feel that. Like if I take a couple days off, I'm like, why am I so off kilter? And I'm like, oh, I haven't moved my body in, a little while. So next up is parenthood. How about you tell us about your family?
I have a wonderful family of 3 adult children now, 2 grandchildren, and they are the light of my life, along with my husband. They have all done very well professionally, academically, and we're a very close, cohesive family. We live close to each other. I help take care of my grandchildren when my son and daughter-in-law need help, and that was something important to me, to live close to my children as adult children and to my grandchildren. I wanted to see them grow up. So it's a great, great family. And I am one of the very fortunate that lives close to my children, my son-in-law, my daughter-in-law. It's very, very important. Really enriches my life. And of course, my grandchildren. I get to see them grow up. And that's really important to me.
That's great. And I love, like I said, we're very lucky to have both sets of our parents very close. And just kind of watching them just love our kids is it's such a great part of parenthood as well. So I know your kids are probably feeling the way. It was like a weird thing. I didn't know that was going to be a part of parenthood, is watching my parents love my kids or my in-laws love my kids. So that's really special that you get to do that as well.
Yeah, it's very, very fortunate. I love every minute of it when I'm with them. It's awesome.
So I know your kids are older, so the next couple questions might be a little bit, you might have to think back a little bit, but what do you think that you were least prepared for in parenthood?
I think, and I still remember this really clearly, Samantha, the lack of sleep. I mean, it's still with me. Always, the oldest is 35. As soon as one started to sleep through the night, I had another one. And then, so I went about 12 years with very, very minimal sleep because my kids were not the best sleepers. And that, I think, was very, very hard for me. And I was not prepared for it. And, it was something I just learned to live with. But I'm glad I'm done with that phase of lack of sleep. 12 years of interrupted sleep because I had 3 children about 3 years apart. So by 3 years old, they were starting to fall asleep, then I'd have another one. And it was really, really tough. And I was not prepared for that lack of sleep for so many years.
Yeah, I feel like some people are like, oh, yeah, you don't really sleep that much when you have kids. And you're like, oh, yeah, like I've had a late night out before or whatever. I go to bed at 11 some nights, and then you're like, this is not what I was expecting in regards of no sleep.
And then when they become teenagers, you stay up at night waiting for them to get home. So it's another like lack of sleep. So
Right. Oh gosh. Just when
I
you think
wasn't
you're out of it.
prepared.
So what do you think that your parenting style was or is?
Very much so authoritative. I really feel that that's important, that they knew that they had to answer to me, that they had boundaries, that they had, curfews. And my kids even say today as an adult that really helped them to stay out of trouble, that there was that authoritative. And my husband too, and he probably even a little bit more so, that with, two boys and a girl, especially sometimes with the boys, they kind of have that part of the brain develops late. But my son, who's a father himself, says it really, really helped that there were rules, that there were boundaries, that we made sure that they understood that they had to live by their rules in our home, and it kept them safe. And he today says, that made a big difference in his life, and he's very successful, and all my kids are, and it worked.
That's great. And that's how I grew up as well, very much like authoritative with the rules and boundaries. And I think it made me like type A-ish with all of my adulthood things. And I always say that I don't know how I would have liked not having rules. I am such a rule follower as an adult. So I'm like, how would I have felt if my parents didn't give me the rules?
I grew up laissez-faire. My parents had no rules, not anything could go. And I, especially as a child, needed those boundaries. And I think that I would have been more productive, more successful, more educated if my parents had boundaries. But they were like, from the hippie generation. And it was, whatever it is, you'll be.
Which is, fun sometimes too. What is one piece of advice that you would give other parents?
I think that it's really, really important to be involved in your child's life and find activities that you can do together. Spend as much time, even as they get older as teenagers, that you can do things together, because they do tend to want to be with their friends more, and you lose some of that connection. And I think you have to really make an effort to have sit-down dinners, make nice dinners, get them, come and sit down, do activities together. We did, cheerleading together. We did really a basketball. We got them in basketball. It was every game, every rehearse when they came to have training. We really tried to put as much time together as they developed. And I think that's really important. And we both work. My husband and I both worked. We took turns. You'll be at this game. I'll be at this game. You'll be, at this, at this activity. And then we tried to find things that we could do together. I do want to recommend for the moms that are listening with daughters, the National Charity League was amazing. And it starts in middle school and ends in high school. You do it with your daughter. I don't know if you've heard about it, Samantha.
No, I've never heard of it.
Oh, it's just terrific. It's all over the country. They work with all different charity groups, and you go with your daughter to help, whether it be to work a blood donation program, a women's shelter, any kind of nonprofit. And that was phenomenal. So every month you have to do a certain amount of hours. We had to spend time together, my daughter and I, and we have great memories of it.
That's great. Spending time together and making a difference. I will hopefully remember that. My kids are so little right now. So hopefully in 10 more years, that'll be around for my daughter, it sounds great. I love that. All right, so let's get into the main event. So we're going to start off a little bit with the cord blood education. So what inspired you to become a cord blood educator? And your father had Parkinson's disease, correct? And how did that influence your advocacy in the field?
So I've always been in medicine, acquisitions for a medical publishing company, and then I worked in medical education. And I came across a program that was just coming to be cord blood stem cells preservation. And it was brand new. And they were asking me if I would go to obstetricians and educate them on what's in cord blood, the importance of these stem cells and preserving them. And I was interested, but it was just by coincidence at that time, going back, 25 years, that my father was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And subsequently, we found out that we have a gene for it in our family. I mean, we've had many of his relatives sadly been affected by Parkinson's. So that really spurred me on, because there wasn't a lot of treatment for Parkinson's. It's been kind of the same medication for years. It is a progressive disease, so it will progress even with medication. And that got me really interested in stem cells in general. And it was just coming about. And I started to learn that this was a possibility for treating a lot of diseases that we really didn't have adequate treatment for. And that really spurred me on. I said, this is something I really feel is not only going to be a career, but it's going to be a journey in advocacy for me. And I still feel that to this day. I still very much trying to educate the communities of families and expectant parents, the military, that these cells are once in a lifetime opportunity to collect and could change a life, improve a life, and we know can save a life for a family.
Wow. And so, as you just said, you've been involved in it for over 20 years. How have you kind of seen the perception and understanding of cord blood banking evolve among families and medical professionals over those years?
So when I first started, we were the obstetricians who are great. We're just starting to learn about it and we're educating the families. But it was inconsistency education. And then I was asked, I was in Connecticut at the time, I lived there for 30 years, to be on a state commission to establish a state mandate that all expectant parents need to be educated on cord blood stem cells, because even if you decide not to, that's fine. At least know about it. At least know that you have that opportunity.
Right.
So I was involved with the state, and we did pass a state mandate requiring obstetricians to educate families. We are now up to, I think, 31 or 32 states that have a cord blood education mandate that anybody working with expectant parents, especially in the second and third trimester, it is either sometimes required or very much encouraged by the state that you educate them on family banking and donation. And I think that's great. And I would like at some point to see all 50 states, because as I said, once these cells are discarded, Samantha, that's it. You can't go back and get them. And they're the youngest, most pristine, healthiest cells we have available today in clinical medicine.
Yeah. And so for some of the listeners, they might not be too familiar with exactly what cord blood banking is and what cord blood cells are. Can you explain what goes into all of that?
Yes. So when you're expecting, you have the option of saving these master stem cells that are in the umbilical cord, in the actual blood. And then there's another cell in the Wharton's jelly that surrounds the umbilical vein. And that's the master structural. These are what we call birth cells, master cells. They have the ability to regenerate and make more cells of themselves. That's regenerate. They have the ability to differentiate into other cell types. So, for example, the cord tissue, also known as the mesenchymal, as the master structural, it gives rise to all structural cells in the body, bone and cartilage and fat and heart cells. And the cord tissue stem cell has the ability to manage out the immune response for those families that have immune diseases. It modulates the immune system. So they have so many benefits. These are special cells. These are not cells like red blood cells. These are stem cells, birth cells. They're very, very smart, both the cord blood and the cord tissue stem cells. They also can migrate to areas of inflammation in the body. So they have a homing mechanism, and they can, just like when you cut your finger, Samantha, your body will send clotting factors. These cells also are programmed to find inflammation in the body. So, so important. So, for example, we're treating a lot of children now with neurological injuries with cord blood, because we know when those children with damage in the brain are infused with their own stem cells, because that's very safe, it's their own, they will migrate to the brain where there's inflammation, and we know there's inflammation because they get an MRI prior. They will pass the brain barrier, which is a very difficult thing for a lot of medications to do. They will anchor in that area where there's inflammation, that signaling is taking place. Not only will they reduce the inflammation because these stem cells are anti-inflammatory, but they will also build new connections in the brain. So these children will have better functioning because as a stem cell, they're regenerating. That's part of their characteristic, new connectivity in the brain. This is so, so important. And we just want to make sure parents understand that there's not a lot of treatment we have for neurological injuries. And cord blood, the FDA has recognized as safe, especially using the baby's own or a matched sibling, easy to administer peripherally, and can find its way past the brain barrier to the damaged tissue. So exciting times, and parents need to know this through education.
And so if you decide to do cord blood banking, where does it stay? Or how does it stay?
You walk in, you decide, I don't want to throw these cells out. We can collect these cells and freeze them indefinitely, but I need to choose a cord blood bank to save these cells. And so what you would do is you would register. This is the Cryo-Cell kit. Typically, we like to send them out 60 days in advance. You'd register really easy. It's an intake. Then this beautiful kit is sent to your home with some documents inside for you to collect instead of discard your baby's stem cells right after the birth of the baby, before the placenta is expelled. It's completely painless to the baby and to the mom, and it only takes a few minutes right after the birth. But instead of discarding them, you are saving these very, very young, healthy, beautiful stem cells. I'm just going to try to grab it.
Yeah.
So this is the bag that we use to collect the stem cells. You insert a needle into the umbilical vein. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes, and in that will be these very, as I said, young, healthy. Remember, these cells too haven't been exposed to really any extent to viruses, vaccines, environmental toxins. So they're really, really healthy. We see very little rejection, what we call graft versus host disease, when we use it for other family members behind babies. So they're the youngest, most healthiest cells that you can get today. And then the other cell collection, is the cord tissue, which again harbors the baby's master structural cell, gives rise to all structural cells in the body, can be used for bone repair, cartilage repair, under clinical trial, heart repair, and autoimmune diseases, because it does modulate. And that's like a 6 to 8 inch piece of the cord, which would go in that specimen cup. And then once everything's collected and labeled, the parents call bank, and it doesn't go in the mail. It goes by medical courier, and a medical courier comes to bedside to assist in the transportation to these very specialized labs. They're very, very highly specialized.
So how would a company like Cryo-Cell maybe address like some logistical challenges of ensuring timely delivery and storage? So like if, say, for example, someone goes in for labor and there's an emergency situation, they have to go for either, an emergency C-section or something like that. How would you, I guess, ensure that all of it gets done properly?
So luckily, we've been collecting cord blood for 35 years. So doctors have a lot of experience in most hospitals. Most of the major hospitals, there will be an emergency backup kit. If their doctor thinks there's a complication, possibly. That happened to me. It's one of my stories. A doctor called me in the middle of the night, took an emergency kit because he was concerned about the baby. But there are kits at last minute. With the medical courier, that's the fastest way of transport. We do want to get these cells back within 3 days of delivery. And typically that's not an issue, because we do use a medical courier that comes directly to the hospital and does a direct handoff. And then if we have to fly the cells out, then he escorts them right to the airport, where we will put them on a plane, and we have a station at the airport in the city that we're in. So we typically don't have a problem, and we typically get them in 48 hours.
Great. So the company obviously that you work for is Cryo-Cell. So what kind of sets Cryo-Cell apart from other cord blood banking companies, particularly in terms of your processing, storage, and quality control?
Oh, it's such an important question. I'm very well known, and I'm not just saying this for cord blood, and because I've been in it almost since the beginning of the field, and I've done a lot of media and conferences, and I only will work with Cryo-Cell. For one, Cryo-Cell established this entire industry, which I think is really important. We were the first cord blood bank to educate obstetricians to process cord blood and to store it, and that was important to me because we have a sense of we're leading this field, and we are. We will be the only cord blood bank not only banking cord blood stem cells, but we will be treating children as well. We are opening up a clinic for children with neurological injuries under expanded access approval by the FDA, under the using an IND approval, independent new drug, an IND it's called, and we will be also treating children. So we'll be providing the complete continuum of care, and that will be sometime this year. We're expecting to open that clinic in Raleigh, North Carolina. Also, what's really important about Cryo-Cell is most banks have the standard accreditation, which is AABB, previously stood for American Association of Blood Banks. It is international accreditation. That's the standard. Every bank has that. But we've gone beyond that, and we have achieved what's called FACT accreditation. It's the most stringent accreditation a bank can achieve. We had to revise our kit because we are international to make sure that it was extremely well insulated for long travel. We store 2 vials of maternal blood from the time of delivery, because FACT accreditation wants that's available in case a parent goes to transplant. I mean, we're freezing these. You can go to transplant 10 years from now. Right. And if the FDA says, you know what, let's make sure the mother didn't have COVID or Zika or strep at the time of delivery, let's just do a double check. No problem. we have those 2 vials of maternal blood. So really, really important. That's included with the Cryo-Cell program. We have 2 processing methods, which is unique. We have our standard, which is used by everybody in the industry. It's called HESPAN. It was developed about 35 years ago with the cobalt study. We added on a second upgraded technology called Prepasite, which yields a higher stem cell recovery from the whole blood. We do have to deplete the red blood cells and plasma from that bag I showed you because they'll play no part in a stem cell. So Prepasite is a much better technology. And then for a little more cost in the first year, parents can choose to use it. And many parents do because we dose by weight of the recipient for the cancers and size of the inflammation for regenerative. So you always want as many stem cells as possible. And that Prepasite, having a choice is important for families. We also store in a 5-chamber bag. Most companies store in a 2-chamber bag. It's called the 80 because this field is going regenerative, as you said, and it'll allow more opportunities to use the cells for multiple treatments if it's neurological repair or for different diagnoses as this field continues to advance. So that's very important. We are also a public bank, so we do have donation sites, also unusual. So we have donation sites. Cedars-Sinai is one of our donation sites. And we have a donate to research program as well. So if you don't want a family bank and families are interested, do want to donate, we do have a donation to clinical research, which is extremely important as well, program.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So a lot of major changes, and our kit is really important. And it's an amazing kit. It's been so well insulated. We know it's one of the best insulated kits because these available to families because they do have to travel to our facility, and it's an amazing kit with phase change gel packs, insulated foam layers, and we know that it will protect those cells at 39 to 86 degrees, much longer than any of the other kits available. So very, very important for families to know those differences.
So there's so many positive things, and I don't want to shed any negativity around it, but what are some misconceptions maybe that people would choose not to get it done or, besides just not being educated?
I think that's such a great question. And I don't think it's negative. I think it's education. And I really thank you for asking it because a lot of expectant parents think they cannot do it because of delayed cord clamping. Now, you're not sure if you're aware of what delayed cord clamping is, but ACOG recommends not to cut the cord until between 30 and 60 seconds post-delivery. Some families want to go longer. They want to go up to 2 minutes. Those families can still collect. And with Prepasite especially, which yields a higher stem cell recovery, we are able to really meet criteria. We do have a criteria. And even if we don't, we will not charge. If we don't get enough stem cells, we'll contact the family and say, look, we don't have enough. At this point, you can choose to store if you'd like, because there is a science called cell expansion where some of the hospitals have approval from the FDA to try to expand these cells outside the body. And we'll explain that to the families. And if they decide, no, you know what, we don't want to, there's no charge whatsoever. And then again, the cord tissue is completely unaffected by delayed cord clamping. And people's like, oh yeah, I forgot. We can collect the second cell, the master structural cell. It's not affected at all. And so some families will do that if they're going to do a very, very extended delay. But I want families to feel that they don't have to choose one or the other. And I think that they feel now that, okay, I'm doing delayed cord clamping. I can't do it. That's not true. Right. We want you to do it. If you're going to do a 2-minute, with our Prepasite technology, you should be able to meet stem cell criteria. So don't let that stop you, from banking cord blood stem cells. And especially for families that have genetic risks, you're going to have to look at that as well. My family, I banked my grandchildren's cord blood and cord tissue because we knew we had Parkinson's. We knew that this is a really important part of the Parkinson's research, stem cells. We know also that we have a gene in our family for macular degeneration. My mother and her brothers also, and we know we carry that gene. My son carries that gene. That is also being studied with stem cells in clinical trials, showing really good results. And so he went in knowing this is our genetic history. We need to store cord blood. We are still going to do delayed cord clamping in 8 seconds. So kind of those are the decisions you have to make. But I think the biggest thing right now is the delayed cord clamping is keeping people from taking advantage of collecting these stem cells.
So do you have any cool success stories from that you maybe can share about family using, besides, I know you talked a little bit about some families using them for neurological help.
Yeah, I do. I mean, one of the first cord blood transplants I worked on back in Connecticut, the mom called me, and this is going back maybe to the early 2000, and she called me and she said, Marion, I'm working with Duke. My daughter was diagnosed with a mild case of cerebral palsy. Duke had just started the cerebral palsy clinical trials, which are now in expanded access. And she said, Marion, when I saved the cord blood, and I give this mom a lot of credit because it was very early on and she took advantage of this technology, and it was more expensive back then. She said, when I saved the cord blood, I thought, I knew it was being used for the cancers. And I thought, everybody has a risk, Marion, for cancer, and especially as you age. I never in a million years thought I'd be calling you to use it for cerebral palsy. And that's because the field's advancing. There's new, we're learning something new all the time about stem cells. Sure enough, that child did go to Duke for treatment. We did send those stem cells. I get like goosebumps when I tell the story. I still do. And she was treated with her own stem cells at 2 years of age, which is always better to get it, to treat these children early, because as the child grows, the inflammation grows. And she's doing really well. But I still remember that mom's voice. I never thought I would call you for cerebral palsy. So that really was an important story. And then there was another father that he's always a little voice in my head. He was calling me about Cryo-Cell because he only wanted to store at a FACT-accredited bank. And a lot of families don't know about FACT. But the top cancer hospitals in the United States and the world are also FACT accredited. MD Anderson, Sloan Kettering, University of Minnesota, Dana-Farber. So he said, I only want to work with a FACT accredited cord blood bank, and Cryo-Cell is really, at that time, only one. And I said, how did you know about FACT accredited? And she said, well, I had a child with a retinoblastoma, and we did not save the cord blood. And yes, a retinoblastoma is treatable with the child's own cord blood stem cells. And we're expecting now child, and I want to store this cord blood, for my family. And he said, as I said, when we went to treat our son, it was a little boy, for the retinoblastoma, we only chose a FACT accredited hospital. I believe he was at Sloan Kettering. And he told me, Marion, make sure families know about this because you don't want to have any regrets. God forbid these cells. So that story stayed with me. I tell his story many times because it was an emotional conversation. So, you have to think about your family history. One doctor said to me, sometimes I say to the family, what's going to keep you up at night? Not doing it or doing it, So financial or, so you have to think about that too, because, everybody's different, but that's a good way to put it. What's going to keep you up at night? Not, especially as we see all these advances in stem cell therapy.
Yeah. Okay,
so it's much more affordable now. When I started, it was over $2,000 25 years ago. You can bank cord blood now for like $900. And that's the first year program. The first year is where most of the cost is because you have your cord blood collection kit that I showed you, your processing, your medical courier, all your infectious disease testing. So the $900 covers all of that in the first year of storage. After that, Samantha, it's only $185 a year for storage. A lot of people think it's monthly. No, it's a year. And then if you do both the master blood and the master structural, it's a year after the first year program. And the first year program for cord blood and cord tissue is so it's really come down. In fact, you could do both cells for what it used to cost when I started just to do the one cell. And yes, we do have payment programs. You can stretch it out 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. We'll work with any family that wants to do this so it's financially feasible for them. And then I always mention if a family has an FSA card or an HSA card, if they get a script from their doctor, most of the funds, the FSAs and HSAs with a script will cover the first year cost. So that's something that a lot of families are not aware of, and I want them to be aware of that as well. So we can make it, as I said, financially feasible for all families that want to do this. Nobody should say, I can't do this for financial reasons. I will help them.
Right. Okay. That's good. That is good to know. And that's what probably maybe people are unsure. And when you do say it, they might think, oh, it's probably out of my price range, but that's good
really
to know
not,
that it's
especially, as I said, we'll make affordable. It work for you. Yes. And I want families to know before we go that this is now a field that a lot of research dollars are going into. Every major university, I did a news spot with Yale years ago at their stem cell lab. Every university has a stem cell lab today. every university. And
Wow.
where we don't have treatments for diseases, disorders, they're looking at stem cells, looking at Alzheimer's, they're looking at, lupus, they're looking at autoimmune disease, celiac, Crohn's, they're looking at Alzheimer's, a lot of neurological disorders because of the ability to cross the brain barrier. We are currently treating children under expanded access by the FDA for traumatic brain injuries, near drowning incidents, stroke, hypoxia, the 80 standard indications that are already being used, cord blood being used around the country, all the lymphomas, blood disorders, solid tumors. But as I said, it's going more and more regenerative. We're repairing damaged tissue. Again, that's important because it might not be a life-threatening disease, but it may really improve the quality of the child's life. We're even treating children now that have neurodiversity, autism, and depending on the severity, parents can choose to get a very safe cord blood transfusion, which shows to improve social skills, eye tracking, speech, social interactions. A lot happening in this field.
Wow. That's so cool. Oh my gosh. Well, I know I learned a lot, and I know all the listeners definitely are going to take away so much. So, what is one final message or advice you'd like to leave with our listeners, particularly expectant parents, maybe about the importance and potential of preserving cord blood stem cells for the future?
I want every parent to make sure that they look into what we're doing with cord blood stem cells. I do a seminar every month. I do private consults. I want them to look at their genetic health history. I want them to get as much education as possible, just so that you make an informed decision. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because once these cells are gone, like this poor father who called me about this son that had the retinoblastoma, once it's gone, it's gone. We can't go back and get these cells. They are very, very unique, very young, very healthy, very unexposed to viruses and vaccines, able to regenerate, able to modulate the immune system. Yes, we can't use it for everything now. Yes, we have clinical trials that we are able to release to, but know that this field is going to continue to advance and really make an informed decision. And I tell families that spend time with me, they'll spend an hour with me asking me questions, and then come back, Marion, we decided right now, we don't think we want to do it. I'm like, you know what? That's fine. I applaud you for getting the information and making an informed decision. And you have options. Like I said, if you don't want to bank for your family, and as this goes regeneratively, where you really do want to use genetically related cells, especially for children, because it's safe, there is a possibility of donation and donation to research. And I'm happy to help anybody with that as well.
That's great. All right, so that's going to bring us to the end of another episode of The Running Wine Mom. As we draw to a close, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to Marion for sharing her wealth of knowledge and passion for cord blood banking with us today. Marion, your insights have truly illuminated the importance of this life-saving practice and the boundless potential it holds for the future of medicine. To our listeners, I hope you found today's episode as enlightening as I have. Remember, the decision to bank cord blood is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that can have far-reaching implications for your family's health and well-being. Be sure to check out the resources provided and reach out to Marion at Cryo-Cell International for any further questions or information. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it. You can also follow me on Instagram at @therunningwinemom_. And Marion, where can the listeners find you?
They can find me very easily. You can contact me at Welch, WELCH, at cryo-cell.com. I have an Instagram page called Save the Cord Blood, and I'm under Facebook as well. But I really encourage people to call me as well, and you're more than welcome to pick up the phone. And I give out my phone number readily. It's 203-942-6206, because some people call me right from the delivery room. We need a kit, so email sometimes doesn't work. So we'll make that happen, and we can put that in text, right?
Awesome. And I'll link all of that down, and I'll put it all in the show notes. So that's really great. I love that you just give out the number. That's awesome.
I know. Well,
so
how it works sometimes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. This was such a wonderful interview. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you're all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers, and I will be back next Tuesday.
Thank you, Samantha.